I need to tell you about that you're not going to hear outside of this room. At least not yet. We are winning. We are winning among young voters. We are winning among independent voters. We are winning among military voters and veterans. And last Monday, when I was barred from the Hofstra University campus and not even allowed to give an interview with a TV station, and the shady Commission on Presidential Debates cheated with both hands to keep Gary Johnson off the stage, they didn't silence the Libertarian Party. Because frankly, nobody cares if they silence the Libertarian Party. We're small. They didn't silence Gary Johnson. Because frankly, he's a humble guy. I'm not mad about either of those things. But I'll tell you what makes me mad. That last Monday, the Commission on Presidential Debates, working for their corporate cronies in the Republican and Democratic parties, they silenced the majority of independent voters. They silenced the majority of military voters and veterans. They silenced the young voters who are the future of this country. And those voices will not be silent. They kept us off that stage. They kept Gary Johnson off that stage because they are scared. Down to their boots, they are scared. Not even able to say the name Gary Johnson, scared. And do you know why they're scared, ladies and gentlemen? Because we can win. They're scared because they operate a deli that sells two kinds of sandwiches: moldy ham and cheese and moldy pastrami. And you can get either sandwich, moldy ham and cheese or moldy pastrami. They're both $5. You can have either one. What they're scared of You're very close, sir. What they're scared of is the most qualified candidate for president, a two-term governor of New Mexico who reached across the divide to heal the partisan rifts within his state and can reach across the divide to heal the partisan rifts in this country. He just rolled up outside the deli with a taco truck, and damn, those tacos are delicious. You show them tacos, nobody wants a moldy sandwich. I don't care how many parts you could bite around and nibble around the edges, nobody wants a moldy sandwich. They want tacos. That's what we're going to give them, ladies and gentlemen. We have not lost any momentum from being excluded from the debates. It's only going faster. The largest circulation newspaper in the entire Midwest just endorsed Gary Johnson for president. No more moldy sandwiches for the Chicago Tribune or the Detroit News Or the New Hampshire union leader that broke a 100-year streak of endorsing Republicans to endorse Gary Johnson. But the Chicago Tribune, I mean, what do they know? That last guy they endorsed, Barack something or other, twice, and he won. And they endorsed the winner before that, too. All the way back to 1996. And they've endorsed a candidate outside the dominant two parties before, too. One time before this, Abraham Lincoln. That one turned out pretty good. We're going to keep winning because we have an army. Gary Johnson is not some Ross Perot. He's not a fly-by-night. He's not an independently wealthy businessman. He is a successful governor that inspires Americans. And the Libertarian Party is not some fly-by-night. We are a national political party active in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, and we are winning. We are the only political party in this country that's growing. Not the Democrats, not the Republicans, not any other political party other than the Libertarian Party. And we have them scared. So what I want you to do is go out there and keep fighting. Because when they're scared, when they're throwing $55 million into a campaign to attack Gary Johnson, a campaign that's only raised less than 10, they're scared. When they know that fully half of the Democratic nominee's support goes to Gary Johnson because they really don't like her, they're scared. We have them scared, and we're going to keep going. When they see a debate, which is really just partisan bickering that everybody's tired of, nobody wants to watch that. We go out and we campaign for Gary Johnson. We visit johnsonweld.com. We sign up to volunteer. We sign up to phone bank. We tell our family. We tell our friends. I'm so glad you could join me here in Phoenix. Phoenix is where I was born. And Phoenix is where, when I was 12 years old, my father, Frank Sarwark, who may be in the room by now, I don't know if he even made his way in because it's so full, but he had to work today. He took me to Libertarian Party meetings, and he's the reason that I stand in front of you now as chairman of the party. This is a special place because it's where my family lives. And it's my 3 kids and my wife. My kids who are growing up in this country that is so riven by partisan discord that I want to grow up with something better. And it's because of them that I stand before you today. It's because our politics is broken. It's because the two-party system is broken. It's because what we need now is someone who can reach across the aisle, who can heal the partisan divides, who can work with people from any party, and who's focused on making our best America yet. We need Gary Johnson, and that's why I'm going to ask you all, do everything you can. We will not give up. We will not quit, and we will win. Now, I'd like to welcome up to the stage a young man from the University of Arizona, Mr. Will Meny. Thank you.
Sometimes I lay under the moon. I think
Phoenix, Arizona!
How are we all doing today? Awesome. Well, just before I begin, my name is Will. But what I would like you all to do in the crowd is, if you're willing and able, just look around and shake hands and introduce yourself to anyone in the room who you don't already know. Any stranger, seriously. All right. Come on, guys, your names aren't that long. All right. Now, the reason I asked this of all of you was because in this room, in this hotel, we have a community. We have a group of like-minded thinkers, one that is unafraid to step away from the norm and to fight for what we believe in. We've all heard about Gary Johnson's dreams for a financially responsible but socially understanding America. We know about his goals of creating a community that can work together to help each other instead of competing constantly and just fighting over the next dollar. We know about his trustworthiness, his ability to follow through on the promises that he's presented us with. You know, growing up in an economy that was the one we were just dealt with after 2008 and everything that followed, all I hear about is how important it is to get a job after college. And how, it's unemployment this and unemployment that. And you turn on CNN and you see two candidates who just present the ways they think they can deliver jobs to our country. But Gary Johnson raised over 100,000 jobs in his 2 terms of the governor of New Mexico. And lowered unemployment by almost 15%. And Gary isn't just the kind of on-paper responsible that we hear all about, like, in politics and through, the media and CNN and everything of that sort. When he was running for governor of New Mexico, his slogan was "People before politics." And not only did he create so many jobs and lower unemployment in his state, he cut taxes for the individual, essentially raising everybody's incomes 14 separate times. And even though it may seem impossible to cut the income of a government through the taxes, how else are they going to get paid? He raised their budget from a massive deficit to over $1 billion in surplus. Now, we have Gary Johnson, a man who vetoed wasteful spending over 400 times. And on the other side of the table, we see people like Donald Trump, who has a reputation. He has a reputation for screwing people out of millions. His multi-billion-dollar corporation sources its profit by scraping away the profits of small businesses that it collaborates with. Collaborated, right. And then we have Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary can't even keep her own words straight. But that doesn't stop big banks from forking over hundreds of thousands of dollars to hear what she has to say. Does that not raise any questions? Come on. Now, our adversaries, they'll remind us of Johnson's slip-ups. But we can't think of the roles of the President of the United States to be diminished to just quizzical natures of remembering names and places. The title of Commander-in-Chief is one that requires resilience and creativity. It's one that requires honesty and the willingness to work together in decision-making, in policy writing, in understanding what the people in our country truly need. And it goes without saying that in terms of those qualities, Gary Johnson is unparalleled. Now, at the beginning of this speech, I asked you all to turn to a neighbor and introduce yourself to someone you had never met before. But what we need to keep in mind within our community is that only 30% of Americans know Gary Johnson by name. He's polling around 10, 11, 12% out of a 30% total. Imagine what would happen if 100% of people knew Gary Johnson's name. Imagine how this election could turn out if everybody in America, not just this room, but the whole country, knew who Gary Johnson was. The two-party system has failed us, my friends. No more. And as a country, I think we need to start accepting that.
We want tacos.
Woo! Taco trucks, get them out. All right. But with only hearing two voices and only having two choices, most of the American population feels as though they're looking at a coin with two sides, when in reality, the decisions of the government, they represent more of a sphere, a ball, of millions of different outcomes and incomes and possibilities that all need to be considered when making policy and deciding the future of our country. And ladies and gentlemen, it is time we elect a problem solver. It is time we elect Gary Johnson. We need to raise awareness. We need to spread his name through all of our neighborhoods, through all of our communities, through all of our schools and our workplaces and our families. And speaking of communities, I am honored to introduce the next guest to this stage, Juan Hernandez, the chair, or co-chair, I should say, of the Hispanics for Gary Johnson. Viva Gary! Viva Gary! Viva Gary!
I understand we have about 300 people outside the doors. First of all, give them a hand for being here. Number two, all of you who were shaking hands, embracing, and all that fun stuff a minute ago, why don't you move forward a little bit so they can get in? Come on, get a little bit closer. You're libertarians. I'm new at this, but I understand you're very close to each other. Come on, más cerca, más cerca, más cerca. Let some more people in. My name is Juan Hernandez, and I am so excited to support Gary Johnson. As a Latino, I am sick and tired of the insults of the right. It is personal with me. I am a Republican, I must tell you. I'm just learning the libertarian way, okay? Be patient with me. I'm a Republican, but there is no way that I can support my party with the candidate they have chosen. It's never, never, never Trump. On the other hand, as a Latino, I'm so tired of all the unkept promises of the left. Especially as a Latino with regard to immigration reform. This president promised me 8 years ago, and I supported McCain, by the way. I worked on his campaign. But when Obama won and he said that he was going to push immigration reform, I thought, well, I hope he does. It's been 8 years, and he has deported more Hispanics, more undocumented than the last 19 presidents together. I cannot trust Hillary, who's now promising again that she'll support immigration reform. I had the great honor of meeting Gary Johnson. Can I tell you the story, how it happened? I was I wrote an article about how not A nor B. There was no way I could support as a Latino Donald Trump. There was no way that as a Latino that I could support Hillary, that she's always on the edge of that word that we dislike so much in Latin America called corrupción. And so I wrote this article, and a guy right from here, from Arizona, a guy named Carlos Sierra wrote to me. Maybe you've heard of him. And he said, Juan, I was with you on the campaign with McCain. There is an option C. And I said, really? He says, yes. His name is Gary Johnson. So thank you, Carlos, and thank you, Arizona, for showing me the way. And it just so happened that the day I was up there at the Republican convention, not there with the convention, but with CNN, and the day that my party selected Donald Trump as the candidate, across the street, just perchance, maybe divine intervention, at a little cafeteria, I was able to meet Gary Johnson. Right there, I listened to him for 5 minutes. He'll tell you it's true, not more than 5 minutes. And I said, sir, I will work for you to become president from now until the day of the elections for free with all of my passion, everything that I can do, especially to get Latinos to vote for Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson is so much like us Latinos. On the one hand, he looks at the social issues the way that we do. We as Latinos, we know that it's very difficult. There are some issues, abortion, there's some issues with regard to gay marriage, there's some issues with regard to decriminalizing some of the drugs. They are difficult, but Gary treats them, as it was said before, people before politics. And on the other hand, like us Latino, Gary Johnson believes in a smaller government. He believes in reducing taxes. He believes in immigration reform. So who am I going to support? Gary Johnson. So please say with me 3 times. Viva Gary! Viva Gary! Viva Gary! Viva Gary! Gary Johnson, will you please join us here? The next president of the United States of America! Viva Gary!
Thank you. Thank you. So if you've been following this campaign, which I'm sure you have, some things that really make me angry of late, they really do make me angry, is when it comes to geographic locations, when it comes to the leaders. And by the way, 3 days after not being able to name a foreign leader that I admired, I still haven't come to grips with that. And never having been involved in politics before becoming governor of New Mexico, one of the things I was really surprised at were all of these people that I held up on pedestals that I came to meet for the first time. And what I realized were that, you know what, they were so many of them were placeholders. They weren't concerned with policy, they were concerned about getting reelected. And so I was jaded in that regard. But when you look at dotting the I's and crossing the T's on geographic locations, leaders of foreign countries, you know, that's a function on Google that lasts about 5 seconds. But when you consider that we're gauging our leaders or their ability to lead on their ability to answer those questions when they're not answering the questions on our military interventions and the fact that we support regime change and we put our military in this horrible, horrible situation of being the world's policeman. So our men and servicewomen are getting killed, they're getting hurt, they're getting maimed, There's a psychological consequence that goes along with being involved in these countries where hundreds of thousands of innocent people are being killed, and our leaders are putting them in that situation. That is untenable, and that has to stop. When you look at Aleppo, when you look at Syria, we got the west side of Aleppo. Let's see, that's Assad and the regime. And then on the east side, we've got the Free Syrian Army that we support. But they're hand in hand with the Islamists that we don't support. And we arm the Free Syrian Army, and those arms end up in the hands of the Islamists. And then we've got Raqqa, and Raqqa, let's see, a lot of that came about because of our invasion of Iraq and Saddam's henchmen fleeing to Raqqa and organizing what 2 years ago we didn't even recognize as ISIS, but now today we recognize as ISIS. And we support the Kurds against ISIS, but the Kurds are sideways with our Turkish ally that aren't as good an allies as they were before we invaded Iraq. You can't make this stuff up. And that's what we're doing. And that's got to stop. Yes. Juan said it. Nick said it. We're leading among independent voters. 28% of America says they're Democrats. 26% of America says they're Republicans. And you look at these presidential debates, the Presidential Debate Commission made up of Republicans and Democrats with absolutely no desire at all to see a third party on stage representing what I think are the majority of Americans, and in this case, it's independents. And then among young people, we've just pulled equal to Hillary among millennials. And the largest demographic group that exists in America today. And a report that's coming out that she's spending tens of millions of dollars to discredit me, which is tens of millions of dollars more than we have to spend on this entire campaign. That is outrageous. That is just outrageous. But that's where we're all at right now. We're all at this inflection point in America, and we do have a chance to change things. And a third demographic poll that I just think really bears repeating over and over again, we're leading among active military personnel, which just speaks volumes to the fact that what we're saying makes sense to the group most affected by these policies. I've lived my entire life telling the truth. And when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. And when you tell the truth, okay, so we all make mistakes too, right? All of us. But when you tell the truth, that means that you acknowledge mistakes. And there's no quicker way to engage in fixing mistakes than acknowledging them first. I think the unforgivable in life is hypocrisy. Saying one thing and doing another. Bill Weld and I are not hypocrites. And Bill Weld, beyond my wildest dreams, Bill Weld is my running mate. Bill Weld was a role model for me prior to becoming governor. Bill Weld in 1997, to refresh your memories, was nominated to be ambassador to Mexico, but his
ambassadorship was blocked by Jesse Helms because Bill Weld in 1997 was pro-gay rights, he was pro-woman's right to choose, and he was pro-medical marijuana. This was in 1997. I've got one bit of advice for all of you here today, and if nothing else comes out of this, this is my advice, and my advice is worth exactly what you pay for it, which is nothing. But my advice is to take whatever it is that you know and apply it entrepreneurially. There'll never be a greater reward than creating your own job or creating jobs for others. And government is making it more and more difficult to do that. Count on certainty that it will not be more difficult with Bill Weld and myself as president and vice president. I do think that the model of the future is the sharing economy, and it's really exciting. I do think the model of the future is Uber. It's Uber everything. It's Uber accountant, it's Uber attorney, it's Uber doctor. It's eliminating the middleman. It's allowing for you and I that provide goods and services to directly give those goods and services to the end user. End user pays less, we're able to make more. That's the sharing economy. Airbnb, everybody wants to come. This is about the time of year when everybody in the world wants to come and visit Phoenix. So Airbnb, I mean, it's a way that all of us can make extra money, but government is moving in on Airbnb. Government is moving in on Uber. No, you all know it. You all know it. I was talking to a young woman in Baltimore who got her PhD in science, and she said, I have these horrible student debts. But I figured out a way to pay back the student debts, Airbnb. I mean, it was working out. I was making money. I was going to pay back the student debts, but the government stepped in and said no to Airbnb. But this is the future, and I have to tell you, government is going to launch a tax when it comes to the new economy, and when it comes to that new economy, Hillary's going to be right in the middle of that saying, no way, you know, protect the status quo. So certainty, elect Bill Weld and myself, certainty, taxes will not go up. Neither. In our each of us, Republicans serving in heavily Democrat states, each getting reelected, being fiscally conservative over the top. The two of us didn't raise taxes 1 penny over the 2 terms each that we each served. I just think it speaks volumes to the fact that people really do appreciate good stewardship of tax dollars. Regulation. Rules and regulation have a place. Health, safety, but regulation when it comes to protecting those that have money, that have influence, making it harder and harder for all of us to compete, that's what we need to stand up against. Right now, the internet is a way that all of us have equality with everybody else in the world. We can compete with anybody in the entire world, you and I am telling you that there is a slew of legislation right now that's pending that will give those that have money and influence in the internet more money and influence and will restrict your and I ability to be able to compete. There are 3 scenarios in this race right now. One is that Trump gets elected, Clinton gets elected. Look, Congress is about as polarized as it possibly can be. Does anybody think that electing one of those 2 is going to bring that polarization together? No way! No way!
2016, everybody!
Really, you are. Come on, let's give him his due. That is about the biggest piece of bullshit that I've ever heard. That is bullshit. That is bullshit. Thank you. That guy and I had breakfast earlier this morning. Don't hurt him going out of here. That was planned. That was. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. And then how about the third scenario, which is electing a couple of guys right down the middle, fiscally conservative, socially inclusive, skeptical of our military interventions, regime change, and free trade, believing that free trade is about more U.S. jobs, not less U.S. jobs. How about that third scenario, hiring libertarians, Republicans, Democrats, no dog in the fight politically. This is really about America, people before politics. Calling out both sides to come to the table to deal with the issues that are facing America. I think you can make a case that that third scenario actually has the opportunity of succeeding. I wholeheartedly agree with Donald Trump on his number one issue in this campaign. I wholeheartedly agree with Hillary Clinton on her number one issue in this entire campaign. Don't vote for Trump and don't vote for Clinton. Keep government out of my pocketbook. Keep government out of my bedroom. Fiscally conservative. What's fiscally conservative right now? Bill Weld and I are pledging a balanced budget in the first 100 days. Why is a balanced budget important? It's important for young people. I'm going to get my health care, I'm going to get my retirement, but who believes that young people are going to be able to survive what is going to be the bankruptcy of America if these issues aren't dealt with? It's not an option to say nothing regarding these issues. They have to be dealt with. The military itself, with the BRAC Commission in the mid-90s, the military itself presented that 25% more U.S. bases could be closed. And that is not in any way to take away from the fact that we should have an invincible national defense. If we're attacked, we're going to attack back. But there isn't any aspect of government that can't be more efficient. And by doing that, we do that for young people. We do that so that there is a future. At some point, there is going to be whiplash inflation to go along with a $20 trillion debt. We should be, as a country, embracing immigration. We're a country of immigrants. The deportation of 11 million undocumented workers has a basis in untruth. That's what it has a basis in. We should make it as easy as possible for somebody that wants to come into this country and work to be able to get a work visa. And a work visa should entail a background check and a social security card so that taxes get paid. Building a wall across the border is not something that we should be engaged in. And if there is any country in the world that we should be embracing, it should be our neighbors, Canada and Mexico. Believing in free markets. Look, free market is devoid of government interference. Government interference is when government picks winners and losers, and they do that politically. It's payola. It's pay to play. It's giving donation to receive something. And I'm afraid that Hillary Clinton is guilty of those things. I do believe that term limits is a silver bullet. If politicians were limited to a couple of terms in office, they would do the right thing as opposed to whatever it takes to get reelected. We would not have a $20 trillion debt today if term limits were in place. I think the economy grows with certainty. I think jobs grow with certainty. In the 2012 cycle, Rick Perry was beating his chest over the fact that he had the best record on jobs of everyone running for president. Well, actually, they did an analysis, and it was Gary Johnson. And my response then is the same response that I have today. I did not create one single job as governor of New Mexico. Government doesn't create jobs, the private sector does, but government can provide certainty. Government can provide equal opportunity. And the fact that I vetoed 750 bills as governor of New Mexico, I got to tell you, a lot of that legislation was giving advantage to those that already had advantage and were paying for more advantage. Equal opportunity. It is something that government can, in fact, accomplish. Healthcare in this country. What's needed when it comes to health care is just a free market approach to health care. And by the way, health care is as far removed from free market as it possibly can be. If we had a free market approach to health care, we would not have insurance to cover ourselves for ongoing medical need. We would have insurance to cover ourselves for catastrophic injury and illness, and we would pay as you go in a system that I'm going to guess would cost about 1/5 of what it currently costs. Government could create an environment of competition, allowing all sorts of alternatives to healthcare that would start with the problems of healthcare, not dealing with the end result. That would be the starter. But right now, I have to agree with Chief Justice Roberts that President Obama's health plan is a tax. My insurance premiums have quadrupled. I hadn't been to see a doctor in 3 years, but I had to see one last week to deal with a physical and the fact that others were talking about physicals. But my insurance premiums quadrupled. And look, if there was a free market approach to health care, we would have all sorts of alternatives. We'd have advertised pricing. We would have advertised outcomes. We'd have stitches are us. We'd have gallbladders are us. We would have x-rays are us. Advertised pricing, advertised outcomes. When we go to the doctor right now, we have no idea what it's going to cost. The person at the desk has no idea what it's going to cost. And when we get the bill, we know that nobody's going to actually pay this. Well, people's choices always come down on the side of people being able to make their own choices. As governor of New Mexico, I was more outspoken than any governor in the United States regarding school choice. That we could do the same thing for education. Bring competition to public education. Now, as President of the United States, what should the federal government do when it comes to education? Well, it would be to get out of the educational business. That's what it would be to do. Right now, Arizona gives Washington 13 cents, and then Arizona gets back 11 cents. How do you like that equation, that bureaucratic wash and dry cycle? And then they send back 11 cents and they say, Arizona, you have to do A, B, C, and D to get your 11 cents. Well, it costs Arizona 15 cents to comply with the 11 cents. So how about just allowing that extra 6 cents to remain in Arizona from the very beginning? 50 laboratories of innovation all across the country, and we would have some fabulous success as opposed to one size fits all. And I think that all of us think the Department of Education was established under George Washington. The Department of Education was established under Jimmy Carter. And I got to tell you, I don't think there's been anything value added to the Department of Education since that has happened. And there are other departments in the federal government. Housing and Urban Development. That is long gone. Department of Commerce, I really think it exists from a crony capitalism standpoint. And there are agencies within these departments that probably should survive, but the entire department survive? I don't think so. And Homeland Security, bringing together 22 different agencies, just put them back in the agencies that they came from. Why is it that government doesn't make any mistakes when it comes to reorganization? Business, of course, does. They suffer for it. But in this case, look, let's do away with the Department of Homeland Security. What do they do? What do they do? Always coming down on the side of personal choice, allowing you and I as individuals to make choices in our own lives that only affect our own lives. If choices we make in our lives adversely affect others, that's where government does have a role. But believing in marriage equality, believing that it is constitutionally guaranteed. On the issue of abortion, how can there be a more difficult issue that anyone could possibly face? And when I say anyone, the woman involved. But who but the woman who is involved make that choice? It needs to be the choice of that woman involved. And I know you've got it on the ballot, and let's make it happen. Let's legalize marijuana in this country. Yeah. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. We have 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. I refuse to believe that we are any less law-abiding than any other country in the world. We have tens of millions of Americans who are convicted felons that but for our drug laws would otherwise be tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. Let's bring an end to the war on drugs, and it starts with legalizing marijuana. All lives matter, okay? All lives matter. But black lives matter, and here's why. Black lives are being shot 6 times that of whites. When it comes to getting pulled over, if you are of color, there's a 4 times more likelihood you will end up behind bars than if you're arrested on drug-related crime than if you are white. So there is a discrimination that exists in this country right now. We need to come to grips with it. I think we've had our heads in the sand over it, and I put myself out there first and foremost as having my head in the sand over this issue. But let's come to grips with it. Let's bring an end to this discrimination. I absolutely support the Second Amendment to the Constitution. That said, should we be open to a debate and a discussion over how we keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill? Yes, we should be open to a debate and a discussion on how that happens. Should we be open to a debate and a discussion on how we keep guns out of the hands of would-be terrorists? Yes, we need to be open to a discussion on how we might be able to make that happen. Talking about mistakes, all right, making mistakes. When I got elected governor of New Mexico, I supported the death penalty. But after being governor of New Mexico, what I came to recognize and reversed myself on it is that it is flawed public policy. There may be up to a 4% error rate on the death penalty. I don't want to put one person to death to punish 999 that are guilty, much less put to death 4 people to punish 96 that are guilty. So it is flawed public policy. When you realize that it costs less to lock a person up for the rest of their lives than to put a person on death row, because when you put a person on death row, there comes all those appeals that go along with the attorneys, but then you find out that someone is released from death row because they're categorically proven to be innocent. You can't put a value on those attorney fees. Governor Ryan, in the 90s, if you will recall, ordered a review of everyone on death row. 36 inmates on death row in Illinois. Over 20 of them were released because they were categorically proven to be innocent because of DNA testing. So death penalty as public policy, it's flawed. It just doesn't work. The military in polls, as I mentioned, we are leading among active military personnel. In that context, based on what I know,
Hey, give her some air. Give her air. Okay. Spread out. Don't everybody get up there. Everybody stay back.
she's all right. She just fell over. So, I mean, she is all right. She's sorry that she's causing this commotion. You don't have to be sorry for causing this commotion. Based on what I know, I would pardon Edward Snowden. Has life in this country ever been better? It's never been better. We get along with each other better than ever. We communicate with each other better than ever. Our kids are smarter than ever. The number one law enforcement that we have is the smartphone in our pockets. Look, we have issues, but as a country, we're going to deal with these issues. I pledge to you, if I am elected President of the United States, I will be the most frugal president ever elected in your lifetime. If you can't lead by example, then you shouldn't lead. You know, this is so cool. I'm asked this all the time. You know, it's got to be really cool to be a former governor. And I have to tell you, and this is the reception that you've all given me, and I am so honored by it. But in New Mexico, people wave at me with all 5 fingers, not just one. And I thank you for waving at me with all 5 fingers. I cannot thank you enough. You all rock. You just rock. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.